I normally do just comparison videos of clones versus real knives, but I just got this knife set and I thought it was a pretty good deal, so I thought I would post it here. Recently I started replacing all of my wife's kitchen knives that were Henkel's professional S-series knives, which were supposedly pretty good knives, but really I was never particularly happy with the way they cut and how they maintained their edge, and then the type of steel that they were made out of. And now that I've started collecting tons of knives, I've noticed that the steel really wasn't that good on those knives. So I wanted something, and I started doing searches for VG10 knives. And I ended up replacing her knives with VG10 knives, not from this series of knives, but from Tajiro knives. And I think I'm going to make a video about them too because I like them so much. But when I got my wife the Tajiro knives, I was very happy with them, and I thought she would just be beaming when she saw them. And she was unhappy with them, and the main reason was because she looked at this couple of knives I bought her, and they didn't have scallops in the blades like Rachel Ray has. So I tried to explain to her that that's really, that she didn't need scallops in the blades, and that, most of the good knives didn't really usually come with those. But she was upset, and she had to have a knife with a scalloped blade. And I still had one knife to buy. I had to get a serrated utility knife, which she likes using. So I did some research, and I found the serrated utility knife that I wanted, and it's very expensive. But it looked like I like the serrations on it, and I like the layout of the knife and everything. Some of the things I didn't like about it, but I figured I could live with it if it was a good cutting knife and I could maintain it and keep it sharp and all those kind of things. So I was searching around, and every place I looked, this knife was $100, and it wasn't really discounted. But I did find what I'm about to show you here, which solved both of my problems, which was a two-piece starter set. So this is called, excuse me, the Shun Classic two-piece starter set, and it has two knives in it. It's made out of VG10 Damascus. I don't really care for the Damascus stuff, but it's a gimmick. But some people like that. It's an 8-inch scallops chef knife, which I figured, if you cut an inch off of that and around to the edge, you'd have a Santoku, which is what she wanted, a scalloped Santoku blade. And it's got a 6-inch serrated utility knife. So these are the regular prices for this. It's $144 for the chef's knife on Amazon. That's a sale price. And then the utility knife is pretty much always that. So it's a $250 roughly set or more. And I got this one for $159 on Amazon, and that's what it's called, Shun Classic 2-piece starter set. So it solved two things. And this is how they come. They just come basically shipped in a sleeve. So it's got her scalloped set, which has got a chef's knife, which I'd rather have than the Santoku anyhow for, I think it'd be smarter for her to use this. So, but, if you rounded the edge of this off, you basically got a Santoku in there. And it's got her scallops. It's a VG10, and it's got a fairly decent edge. Really, it's okay. It's not as good as the Santoku's, and it's a little thicker behind the cutting edge. So to me, it wouldn't be my primary one. I think the one I got her was better, which was a much larger Tajiro blade. It's got these pack of wood D-shaped handles, which do feel kind of nice, which have kind of an Asian inspiration. They're not the classic handles, the European handles, French handles. So this one's okay. It's all right. But this is the real one I'm really showing off here, which is this little 6-inch utility slicer is something else. And so it's VG10 Damascus as well. And you can see the serrations. One of the reasons why I kind of wanted a finer serration on there was because a lot of the little rods, diamond rods I have that I use to sharpen these serrations, they're kind of smallish. Even though I have big rods, I either need these things real big or real small, and these would be easier to sharpen just one at a time, because the last knife, she had a Henkel's utility knife, and it had skip serrations. Some were big, some were little, which aggravates you when you're trying to sharpen it. And then the other thing was some of the serrations were much wider than this on that knife and the bread knife, and so my little, it was the serration cavities were too small for my big rods and too big for my small rods, if that makes sense. So this is about the size that would be easy to slip a small diamond rod in there. Which side is this that's got the serrations on it? That's got the, yeah, here we go. and just basically walk down and sharpen all those things and then hit the back edge and keep this thing sharp. But the most amazing thing about this knife is what I'm going to demonstrate in a minute, which is just how blazingly sharp it is. It's got some fingerprints on it that I just put on it. Sharp all the way to the edge and sharp all the way to the heel. It's got the same kind of D-shaped Asian-inspired handle. The interesting thing about these handles is that this ridge here falls right across the crease of your joints if you hold it right-handed, and if you hold it left-handed, your fingers kind of curl around the bottom part of the ridge and your thumb sits on the top. So it's really, I think, genius, although a lot of people complain, professional people complain about these handles, but I don't know, since I'm not a professional, maybe they're not good, but they sure feel nice to me, and they feel like they're ambidextrous, and that no matter how you grip them, they seem to feel pretty good in your hand. You know, the little one's got a lot smaller handle than the big one. Let me see, hopefully this will work here. Now this is a serrated knife, so you know normally people wouldn't try to do a cut test on one of these things, but because the serrations would grab, but this thing is like a razor blade, and it is just awesome. And I just sold a serrated knife, and I had gotten it where it was pretty sharp, and it would cut similar to this, but not quite to the extent that this one cuts. So, so the big deal about this thing is how good a deal it was for the two knives. And so I had to solve two problems: getting the utility knife and getting a scalloped knife. And these solved it pretty well. And this is, you know, a pretty good deal, I think, for these two knives, all told. This was the one I really was interested in making sure she got, and then this solved the scalloped issue that Rachel Ray seems to have perpetrated on everybody. I don't think they're a bad idea. I just think that I'm more interested in the performance of the blade than whether it's got scallops, and my wife had to have scallops. So now she's got one that's got scallops in it. She seems to be pretty happy. Even though the Tajiros, I think, are much better knives, and they cut like laser beams. And this is a thicker, heavier knife. I don't think the geometry of this cutting edge is quite as good, but you know, as long as she likes it, that's going to be fine. She seems to be worried about things sticking to the blade. I guess that's, you know, whatever. So thanks for watching. I hope somebody found this useful. I'm not going to put the Amazon link up here. I am in no way associated with these guys. I don't have an Amazon account. I'm trying to scam people and make you buy blades on my account or anything. Just go to, you know, just go to Amazon and look for this. Yeah, the two-piece classic starter set, if you could read that. Just go there and look for that. And I couldn't find this set anyplace else. So Amazon turned out to be the best place to buy a lot of my knives, better than a lot of the cutlery places. So, so hope this helped. I normally do just comparison videos of clones versus real knives, but I just got this knife set and I thought it was a pretty good deal, so I thought I would post it here. Recently I started replacing all of my wife's kitchen knives that were Henkel's professional S-series knives, which were supposedly pretty good knives, but really I was never particularly happy with the way they cut and how they maintained their edge, and then the type of steel that they were made out of. And now that I've started collecting tons of knives, I've noticed that the steel really wasn't that good on those knives. So I wanted something, and I started doing searches for VG10 knives. And I ended up replacing her knives with VG10 knives. Not from this series of knives, but from Tajiro knives, and I think I'm going to